It only takes one person to change the direction in the life of someone else. Grammy-nominated Deborah Allen was sure that music was what she wanted, and as a teenager, she just forged ahead. There was no plan B in sight. Fortunately, after moving to Nashville, Plan A worked out in a grand fashion. With hits like Baby I Lied, I've Been Wrong Before, I Hurt For You, Rock Me, and many more. And it all started one day at IHOP. A man changed the direction of her life. This is her story. This is today's Nashville. This is Faith. Beautiful Deborah Allen, thank you so much for inviting me into your home. What an honor and blessing it is to sit down in your beautiful house. Tell me about this room.
Thank you. Well, this room is where a lot of music is made. I've written a lot of songs on this piano. And it's, you know, this house is definitely lived in. I mean, I've traveled a lot and gathered some things around the world as I travel. And so, you know, it's got a lot of fond memories in it, but it's definitely lived in, and we have a fun time here.
Well, you know, I was reading a little bit about you. You came to Nashville. Let's talk about that, because I love how, you know, a favorite restaurant, something happened there. Can you share about it?
Yeah, well, you know, I'm originally from Memphis, and I started out there, and there's a whole story how it evolved that I got to Nashville. But when I moved to Nashville a long time ago, there was an IHOP at the very top of Music Row. And I mean, you could go in there and see hit producers, hit songwriters, artists would go in there in between sessions. It was just a cool place to go, and I found out about it. Well, actually, I got a job there. And to tell you the funniest truth, I wound up first working at Lum's, and it paid $1 an hour. But I told the lady, I said, I don't feel right taking this tip. She goes, oh, honey, you'll get used to it. So, but you know what, I really didn't. I thought, I'm going to go work at the IHOP because I like their food better. So I took a pay cut. I was getting 65 cents an hour, but the tips were really good, and I loved all the people there. But when I quit working there, I still loved everybody there. I could show up and eat by myself and not feel like the lonely girl. So one morning I thought I would go down and get some breakfast. So I went down to the IHOP, and I was sitting there. I can just feel myself in that booth in that little red print dress, and I looked across the restaurant, and I saw this guy with black sunglasses and jet black hair, and then this guy with salt and pepper hair. And I thought, those guys have got to be in the music business. So don't ask me why I did this, Terry, but I gathered myself up, and I walk over to the edge of their booth, and I go, excuse me, but are y'all in the insurance business? I go, no, darling, we're in the music business. I slide into that booth. I go, that's what I was thinking. Listen, I'm trying to get started. I'm a singer. I mean, if I were them, I might have said, look, we just got our pancakes. We'll talk to you later. But they were so sweet to me. They talked to me for a long time. I thought I would never see or hear from them again. By the way, it was Roy Orbison and Joe Melson that I was in the presence of. So it was amazing. They were so warm and wonderful, took me seriously and gave me some advice. But a couple of weeks later, I went by AFTRA to let them know I had a telephone. And they go, oh, man, we're so glad to see you. We've been, someone's been looking for you. We can give them your number now. I said, who's looking for me? He said, Joe Melson. They want you to come and sing on a Roy Orbison record. I said, you're kidding me. So they gave me my first opportunity in the studio. I can still remember how much I got paid. It was $87.50. And it wasn't a real big famous record. It was more of like a discount collection record, but still, that was a pretty wonderful opportunity.
Well, you know, I love your vision, and I remember you saying when you came to Nashville, you had Plan A, and there was no Plan B.
Eventually, I auditioned and got a job at Opryland. And I loved it. I worked there on the showboat. I did a little TV special that they did at the park. And then they auditioned people to go to Russia, which I was part of the Opryland troupe that went to Russia.
What was that like?
It was amazing. Tennessee Ernie Ford was the star of the show, and we were surrounding Tennessee Ernie, and it was really actually a history show of how country music evolved over here. But it was amazing. We went to Yerevan, Baku, Tbilisi, well, of course, Moscow, and there's one other place that I'm not thinking of right now, but 5 places there, and it was an amazing trip of a lifetime. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world, and I especially wouldn't trade getting to know Tennessee Ernie Ford. He was sort of like a father figure. He had a good time with the guys. They had a good time, but for me, he was always, kind of giving me some advice.
So when you got back from Russia, then what happened with you?
Oh, well, that's when I decided there's no way I could have a plan B, because I was actually asked to come back and work at the park, which would, to me, it felt comfortable because I knew I'd be getting a weekly paycheck, which that's kind of sometimes rare in the music business, because most people make money with residuals and things like that. But I went back and I auditioned, and I don't know, something just felt like I shouldn't get too comfortable. I thought, I want to challenge myself. I want to throw myself out there into the world of just creativity and see where it leads me. I didn't want to get too used to counting on it. And I'm glad that I did, because I wound up falling into a nest of some of the greatest songwriters and artists of all time. My dearest friend was Marie Barrett, who worked at Waylon Jennings' office. So I was there, John Hartford would come in sometimes. In fact, Marie wound up marrying John.
Well, how old were you during this time?
At that time, I was probably about 19, maybe getting close to 20. Cal Lenning got his start there, right there at Waylon's office, and I met a character named Shel Silverstein. And Shel Silverstein is a great poet, songwriter. He wrote on a cover of a Rolling Stone. He wrote A Boy Named Sue and Big Brass Bed for Brenda Lee. He's just an incredible songwriter. So here I was. I had just gotten back from Russia, walked away from a solid job where I could make money. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I had gotten this happy hour job at the Spin Spanner. So I told Shel, I said, Shel, I'm kind of at a crossroads. I don't know what I'm going to do. I said, would you come hear me sing at the happy hour at Spin Spanner? He said, sure. He kind of had this ragged voice, and he looked like a pirate. Everybody loved Shel. He was just so eccentric and such a great poet. Well, so he showed up. I did my set, and after the set was over, I go, so what'd you think? He goes, well, I think you got a good voice. And I went, oh, boy, I'm getting ready to get discovered. And then he said, there's a lot of great singers here in Nashville. My heart kind of deflated. But he said, you know how good you feel up there on that stage? And I was like, yeah, I didn't know where he was going with this. He goes, that feeling goes away, doesn't it? And I had to admit that it did. The longer you're off stage, the excitement wears off. He goes, have you ever thought about writing songs? I said, well, I've written poems, but never a song. He goes, I think you ought to think about writing songs,
Well, you know what? We're going to talk about that.
Okay.
When we come back, because you have written so many songs, and you've had #1 hits yourself, and we're going to talk about that right after the break.
All right. Thanks, Terry.